I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. Here's your look at the new Diamond Select. This is the gallery diorama statue of Bruce Lee, Kick. This gallery diorama of martial arts master Bruce Lee delivering a fiery kick is made of high-quality PVC and features collectible quality paint applications. The statue was designed by Nelson X. Asensio and sculpted by Rocco Tartamella. If you are a Bruce Lee fan like I am, and certainly wish to pick up this piece for yourself, the first thing you probably will want to know is how big is the statue? A service I'm more than happy to oblige with. We're going to stop the tape measure at what I believe to be the tallest point on this statue, and that is to the very top of Bruce Lee's head. I think it is just a little bit taller than his kick. Either way, though, the statue stands 8.5 inches in height. And that in centimeters works out to be 21.8, almost 22 centimeters tall. A big thank you to the folks over at Diamond Select who are nice enough to provide the sample that we're having a look at in this review. This statue depicts Bruce Lee in his trademark yellow jumpsuit made famous in the 1978 film Game of Death. One of my all-time favorite Bruce Lee films, second, I think, to Enter the Dragon. It just so happens that Enter the Dragon gets awarded, I think, the top spot, only because that was the first film I ever saw Bruce Lee in. So for that reasoning, I do think Enter the Dragon is my all-time favorite, with, I think, Game of Death coming a very, very close second to that. Having a look at the flooring here, the bottom base, the display stand, of course, in which Bruce Lee is perched atop of, we've got the traditional tatami flooring. The flooring doesn't have a whole lot of coloring to it, but certainly does have the texturing trademark to what you would expect with the old traditional martial arts floorings in those old martial arts studios and dojos. You can see, like I said, there doesn't have a lot of paint to it. Keeping more to the traditional color of what tatami flooring would be. It's kind of like that kind of creamy beige color. These little puffs of smoke really add to the extra little bit of oomph, but of course we'll look at that just in a second. And then you've got a rack here with one single nunchuck looking to be about to be used. I'm sure Bruce Lee's just about to grab those. The other end of the rack is completely vacant, but certainly the rack itself is very nicely detailed, simulating what would be like a real wood grain, right down to the coloring of the brown. You can kind of even see how everything would be constructed together. Really happy with overall, like I said, the base itself doesn't have to be overly complicated. Certainly for the situation, of course, in which the film is based from, I think the perfect flooring, I think, for this particular statue. We flip it upside down, being mindful, of course, not to bang anything that's on the top there, and you can kind of see the underworkings of how everything gets pegged and placed together. Underneath that, you've got Diamond Select and made in China there as well. Overall, just really, really happy with how the display base turned out. Let's hope the statue is about the same. As for Bruce Lee himself, I'm very happy to report that the head portrait does look, in fact, quite a bit like Bruce Lee. One admitting flaw, I think, unfortunately, to the select version of the Bruce Lee action figure that we looked at recently on this channel, I don't think the portrait was as good on the figure as it is here on the statue. Just moving his very large leg out of the way, there is Bruce Lee, the figure that we've already had a look at. I personally feel it's a night and day comparison. I did feel like the head portrait was a bit off on the figure, but certainly when you do the comparisons side to side, left to right, the gallery versus the select figure, you really definitely see like the portrait is far superior on the statue than what we did get with the initial figure here. This is a really fun pose that they put Bruce Lee in. He's leaving the floor and looking like he's about to connect with a fiery kick. Quite literally, he's leaving the floor. We looked at the translucent, smoky little puffs of smoke there on the flooring. One said section right here, which kind of looks like an upside-down clown face, doesn't it? Eyes, nose, mouth, maybe not. Needless to say, that's done in a translucent smoke color, and as it leaves the floor, much like Bruce Lee's kick, it continues its way, getting darker in color. The smoke is now kind of transitioned into this orange color. It gets a little more deeper and richer here before eventually transitioning off into the yellow. Not quite the same yellow as his jumpsuit, so it does look distinct and not part of the actual kick itself. Sure, this is not something that Bruce Lee would necessarily be able to pull off, the special effects alone, and I don't think they would ever light the martial arts master his leg on fire. So again, this is kind of an artist interpretation of the fire and the strength behind Bruce Lee's kick. I really do think that's fun. The texturing and detailing done to his jumpsuit, it's a little paler, you probably will remember seeing. If not, let me bring it in again. There was the figure that we had a look at. The yellow jumpsuit definitely is a very stark different. This one is much more of a more primary yellow, if you will. Whereas this yellow here on the gallery version of Bruce Lee, the jumpsuit is kind of more of a lemon yellow, or very light yellow. I like this yellow, I think, a little bit more. It seems to almost change a color up here. As you can see around the arms section, and even like right around the torso, it seems like it's a slightly different shade of yellow than the areas of his legs. I would imagine like the coloring should stay consistent. Maybe it's just an optical illusion, but it does seem like the legs are a slight lighter shade to the torso and the arms of Bruce Lee. Some detailing also to mention as well as the laces have been painted in white. You've got the black sock, a nice black stripe running up the inner seam of his leg and running all the way up to the extended out foot. And you can see that they've detailed the undersole of Bruce Lee's shoe there as well. Paint is really good on this statue. Again, the jumpsuit is a more lighter shade of yellow, but I think it's a little bit more accurate the way it was in the film. The skin tone of Bruce Lee, I think, is quite accurate also as well. I love the gesture that they put in his two hands. Gives him a real natural flow. And I really think that paint, though there is one little splotch or a scratch or removal of paint there on the end of Bruce Lee's nose, I'm very, very happy with how Bruce Lee's face and his expression turned out. It's a little difficult actually to start moving the statue around without banging the camera, resulting because he does have that one extended out leg. I'm very, very, though, happy with the portrait on this guy. In a way, I kind of am disappointed how good this one turned out. I wish they could have mirrored this same portrait on the smaller select Bruce Lee that we already had a look at. I'm liking the statue. I'm liking the statue a lot. I'm a big fan of Bruce Lee, growing up with Bruce Lee, and my breaks away from school, usually on the weekends, Saturday afternoons, without fail. I believe it was on WUTV Buffalo. Anybody remember that station? Usually Saturday afternoons were classic Bruce Lee films. I say classic because these films predated me. In fact, Game of Death came out when I was born. Just kind of put things in perspective for how old this humbled reviewer was. Needless to say, Saturday afternoons were usually the newest Bruce Lee film, at least newest for me because I hadn't seen it before. And Sunday afternoons were always Toho Godzilla films. It was a really good time to be growing up and weekends away from, like I said, school. But Bruce Lee was a staple in my household. Still, Game of Death, probably my second favorite Bruce Lee film, with Enter the Dragon still being the first. Nothing can beat the trademark color scheme of his yellow jumpsuit with the black stripes running down his legs. So iconic, in fact, of course, Uma Thurman would be sporting a similar outfit in the Kill Bill films. But I really liked this particular statue in the fact that not only do we get a better likeness than the select version of Bruce Lee, which I kind of was on the fence about. And I think now that I can do an apples to apples and not apples to oranges, and I know what Diamond Select is capable of doing, I really think that this is a far superior head sculpt than the one we got with the figure. This one looks like Bruce Lee. The pose is so Bruce Lee as well, minus of course for the fact he's got the trail of fire coming away from his leg. That's probably not something you would expect to find in a Bruce Lee film of all things, but it definitely does add the additional energy that you would expect Bruce Lee to have with the kicks when he lands them on one of his opponents. It's not quite something you would see in his films, but certainly you really get the energy flowing through his legs when you look at a gallery statue like this. I happen to quite like the fact that they did add that trail behind his legs, so some good artistic interpretation, some creative decision process making on your part, Diamond Select. Nicely done. The coloring is good on this guy. A little pale on his jumpsuit, but I can overlook that. And I just like overall how this figure turned out. This is one I'm looking forward to probably putting out. I'm likely going to be putting him right in front of some of my martial arts films. So every time I go to see a new Bruce Lee film, I get reminded by this really cool, stellar gallery statue entitled, fittingly enough, Kick, from the folks over at Diamond Select. Again, a big thank you to the folks over at Diamond for providing this sample that we had a look at in this review. If you managed to pick up Kick for yourself, let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of it, or just based on this review, and this review alone. One better, also let me know down below what your favorite Bruce Lee film is. Always like talking shop with other people who love the craft like I do. Bruce Lee, again, for me, I was growing up with it. Bruce Lee and Godzilla, that was my weekends. Though you would never see the two probably fighting one another, I'm pretty certain Bruce Lee would hand it to Godzilla. Either way, if you are new to this channel or a long-time viewer and never got around to it, that's okay. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, members of the mob, and stay tuned, because there's going to be a whole lot of videos coming your way. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.